Alrighty, what's up, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of Why Are We Here? I'm your host, and today we have the man, the myth, the Florida legend, Easton Corbin on the pod. What's up, dude? How's it going?
I'm doing great, man. How you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm doing
good,
well.
man.
We were just talking before we hopped on. I'm just a fan. I love what you do, man.
Thank you.
It's so
Thank
fun
you.
to go from watching somebody and listening to somebody and then getting to chat with them because that's like
Yeah.
the dream, you know? It's awesome.
Dude, it's good to be here. man.
We met super briefly. This is my first Easton Corbin story, and you won't remember this, so feel absolutely no pressure to like actually try to remember this. We were on a flight, and you sat like a row up from me or something like that. We talked really briefly, and I remember at the time I like got off the flight and I called my mom. She was coming to pick me up for something, and I was like, I just met Easton Corbin. He was so nice. So you were nice then, and you're nice now, and I'm just pumped.
Actually,
to
I
have you here.
remember that.
Do you really?
No, not really.
Yeah, I didn't think so. I didn't think so. You grew up.
It's so funny though. People ask, man, do you remember meeting me like so and so?
No, and you
and
never
I'm
will.
like, it's like, oh yeah, I remember that. It's like,
As a guy who
yeah.
gets the same thing,
Yeah.
that's why I'm always like, look, I know you don't remember this, but just letting you know, we met very briefly on
That's
a
awesome,
flight.
man.
But I tell you that because you were super nice to me, and especially
cool,
I just
man.
moved to town, and I was like kind of doing it. And we had just a really short exchange of
Yeah,
you're like,
yeah.
yeah, dude, keep doing your thing, and that's always cool when you meet somebody that you like and they like live up to the hype and they're a cool guy and they're a nice guy.
Oh,
So
nice, man. Makes
you
me feel good.
you passed the not a dick test. Congratulations.
Well, I'm glad I lived up to that one.
So glad I did that. Yeah, man. You grew up in Florida. You're a Florida
did.
guy. We were just
Yeah.
talking how you went to U of F.
Yep, UF. Yep.
Was your degree in agriculture?
Yeah, my degree was in it was actually food and resource economics is what
Okay.
it's called, and it's basically an agriculture business degree.
Sure.
It kind of specializes in economics and marketing and business and
Yeah. What
Yeah.
was like the dream with that? Like, what were you gonna do?
For me, it was one of those things where I always knew I was going to come to Nashville. Like ever since, people ask me, when did you decide you want to be a country music singer?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't remember a time where like I specifically remember. It was just
Just like who you are.
that's what I
Yeah.
wanted to do since I was a kid. But my grandparents, my parents always asked me before I did that, just go get an education.
Mhm.
So to me, going to college, getting an agriculture business degree, growing up on a farm, that just kind of fit.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
What would you do if you're not doing country music right now?
It's funny, man. Probably something in the farming or ranching industry somewhere. Maybe not directly that, but I don't know. Or maybe I always thought about I kind of like law.
Interesting.
I don't know.
I could see like
Yeah.
if you had a brother or like a dad, Corbin and Corbin. That's like Morgan and Morgan.
Maybe I don't know.
No, it's super interesting. I'm always curious to like.
I'm glad I'm not using my degree right now.
Yeah, no, I feel the
I'm
same way.
super blessed.
My parents made me do the same thing. Like, I was like, I think I want to do music. They're like, please finish. Not like we don't believe in you.
I get it.
But it's just,
yeah.
it's a part of
Well,
the.
it's one of those things where you go down here, Broadway or wherever, and you see people that are really talented
So talented.
and they don't get a shot. But then sometimes you see people that you think like, how in the hell did they make? And they get a shot.
Yeah.
It's like I don't know.
No, 100%. It's smart and it's wise, and I think we both have great parents that would want us to.
Yeah,
do that.
absolutely. And even though I'm not directly using my degree, I feel like in the business part of it,
Correct.
there's some of those aspects that it does help you in.
Yeah, I have a marketing degree, and like, although I'm not working for a marketing firm, I'm a business. You are a business.
you're
Like,
a business.
our name is what we do. And
Absolutely.
So it all translates.
I think so.
So when did you move to Nashville? You graduate college.
I graduated in 2006 in May, and I was here October 14th, I believe, 2006. I might be off a few days, but
And what was like, you're here for the first month. What are you doing in that first month? Because I think a lot of people don't know, like, it's not like you showed up and some guy was like, hey, kid, you got
Right.
Moxie. Come
well,
with me.
it's funny because I was coming to Nashville while I was going to school, so I
Okay,
was
taking
making
trips.
Yeah, I was making some connections, and but I guess my first month I was probably looking for a job.
Yeah.
Try to pay rent,
Right.
try to eat.
And how did you go from trying to pay rent to a record deal? Like, what does that kind of process look like as a newbie?
It's funny. It was really random. So I have a cousin, step cousin, and he was a professor at the University of Montana. And I thought he was like a damn history professor or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
And but turns out he was started their music program,
Oh, really?
their music management program there.
My booking agent went through that music management program.
And who
at
is he?
Montana. Austin Mullins.
I don't know, but there's a bunch of those Montana guys.
There's
that
there's a lot of them.
Yeah. Rob Beckham's an old
Yeah.
booking agent that went through there.
Yeah.
Quite a few of those guys.
That's wild.
And so he had connections with these guys in town, and he first heard my stuff. And Scott, my cousin, he's one of those guys who's like, man, I don't get involved with family and business and all this stuff, but he's like, I've heard what you've done and demo that I made. He's like, man, I really like it. Would you mind me playing it for some people? And I'm like, well, yeah, of course. Yeah. And so he ended up playing it for a guy named James Yelich, booking agent for Monterey Peninsula. I think he's retired now. And ended up, I moved to Nashville, whatever, and meetings with all kind of people and stuff while I'm working. And James was like, hey, man, come down here and play for me. And so I came down and played for him and whatever. And then he asked me back a little while later. I don't know the time frame on it, but he had a guy named Joe Fisher in there. And I thought it was just another guy I'm playing for. You know what I mean? It's like another.
You never know.
You don't know. And so I got through playing for him, and Joe left. And I'm like, hey, by the way, what does Joe do? He's like, oh, he's A&R over at Universal. I was like, what does A&R do? He's like, well, they sign acts. I'm like, oh, shit. I'm glad I didn't know because I'd have been nervous as hell.
Right.
And so Joe had me come over and play for Brian Wright, which was head of A&R.
Sure.
Universal. And literally, dude, the same day I went and played for him, he's like, hey, man, want a record deal? Sure.
Dang,
right? And
that's incredible.
In fact, I started out with a developmental deal, which you don't really see a lot anymore.
Right,
and
right.
that's where you go cut 4 or 6 songs. They give you a budget to do that. And then if they like it and they feel like it's something,
Like pick it up.
they'll pick it up and sign you to a full-blown record deal.
Yeah.
And while all that was going on, it was funny. I got a job here in town. I was working at Ace Hardware. And so I was doing that while, doing that.
Yeah. I mean, that's wild to think. Probably within a year or two.
It was about a year and a half.
Yeah. You're going from Ace Hardware to your first song was number 1, right? Like to radio.
Yeah.
To go from Ace Hardware to a number 1 song, that's a fast track. That's pretty fun.
It's funny because I remember even when I had my record deal, I was still working.
Yeah.
Like
of course.
I was working.
Because you have to pay your bills.
Yeah,
it's cool.
all the way up to when I started making my record. At that point, I couldn't, work and do that. So that's when I quit my job and did that full time.
That's wild. So you're making your record. How did you know, especially as a new guy in town, like, I want to sound like this? Or like, because I've heard you say a couple times, like, 1 foot in the modern, 1 foot in the traditional.
Yeah.
It seems like kind of like your mantra or like part of your North Star, your guiding system when making music. Was that kind of always the case? Did you start out more traditional? Have you had people try to make you go a little poppier? Like, what did that process look like for you?
It's funny, man. As a new artist, you're a little bit, what's the word for it? You're a little bit, not naive,
Like green,
innocent. You don't. There's not a whole lot of agendas. You're just in there. It's like, man, I just want to record songs that I love. So there's no thoughts of, hey, man, this has got to be another number 1, or this has got to be this commercial over here. This has got to be this. So really, me and my producer Carson at the time, the kind of the angle we took was just, man, let's just cut songs we love. Yeah. And that's what I did. And there was no other cooks in the kitchen, so to speak.
Sure.
So that first record, it was just, man, let's just record songs we love.
Yeah. Well, like when you say a song you love, what are some of those like pieces? Like, how important is the songwriting process to you? Like, what does a great country song entail? Or like, when you hear a song, what is the moment where, because I always ask myself the same thing, like, is this good or is this great? Is this, something that's going to sit on my phone, or is this a cut? There's a difference, and where's that line? Is it different every time?
Man, as far as songwriting process, I really didn't get into songwriting until I moved to town. I just love.
I'm the same way, and a lot of people are like that. Like, you just love music, and you go, wait, 3
music.
people get together in a room,
and
they all bring in ideas.
Yeah,
it's so different.
So it's definitely different. As far as kind of differentiating just a cut from a hit song, I don't know. I've always just went with my gut, and it's got to be a song that, because I've been pitched songs that have been huge hits that I didn't cut, because I always look at it as something, I have to be able to relate to a song, in a way. Yeah. And that's one thing that I go by. It's like, hey, can I relate to it? Can I see myself? Maybe not directly, but indirectly. And really, man, it's just I've always been pretty blessed with a good song sense. Generally.
Yeah. Well, I would agree. You got the jams, dude.
The jams. And it's just, I don't know. I just use my gut.
I think that's a great thing to go off of, though, because there is this part of like picking songs that is, even though it could be a hit or it's a great song, if the delivery doesn't come with authenticity or like you feel it, there's a weird, I don't know how to even pinpoint it. It's like an energy thing. Like,
Yeah. Well, I've always
you can feel
said,
that.
you know, that song might be a hit, but it might not be a hit for me.
Yeah, that's a
It
great
might
way
be a
to
hit
put
for
it.
somebody else.
That's a great way to put
You
it.
know, I remember them playing, you know, I Drive Your Truck for me. And it was a great song. You know, it was a song of the year, Lee Brice.
Yeah.
And I just, man, I don't have a brother. I couldn't kind of relate to it. You know, I was like, yeah, it's a
Sure.
great song, but I just feel like that's a hit for somebody else.
Dang.
You
Yeah.
know?
Do you at all like think of, oh man, I should have cut that song, or do you feel pretty confident in your like in your gut?
You can't look back.
Yeah.
You know?
I think that's right. I
Yeah,
think
you can't look back, man.
yeah,
Just
like
gotta move forward.
well, and what I love about what you do is it is this 1 foot in the modern, 1 foot in the traditional. Like as a guy who I feel like you hold it down for the traditional side of country music in a way that's like you really honor the traditions of kind of where we come from. Like a lot of your big hit songs, when I think of like my high school or my college or whatever, I think of your songs, which I think that's what great country songs do.
Yeah, that's what they're supposed to do.
Yeah,
You're supposed
exactly.
to think
They
of
like-
a snippet in time. Like
Exactly.
when you think of that song, man, I think of this.
Yes,
You
and
know?
that's exactly how I feel. Clockwork for me was a fishing song with my buddy John, and he was obsessed with that song. So was I, but he was so obsessed with it that I had to ask him to stop playing it because I'm like, dude, stop.
I like that guy.
I love this song,
Yeah.
but you got to stop playing it. It was that good, and that's what that song brings me to that time in my life, and that's
awesome,
what
man.
great country music does.
That's
to
what
me.
it's supposed to do.
Yeah.
That's the purpose.
What is like as a guy who sits in like the 1 foot in both places, like as country music evolves and changes, how do you define country music? Like especially now with 808s, hip hop, somebody like FGL, somebody like Sam Hunt, somebody like Dan and Shay. Then you have guys like Chris Stapleton, guys like Morgan Wallen, guys like Luke Combs.
Man, I don't know if you can really define it because, like I said, it's an ever evolving genre. I would say, country music itself is wider than it's ever been. You know what I mean? But I remember back in the day when Rascal Flatts was, people were bitching about, oh man, it's so pop and all this stuff.
Country, yeah.
But now when you look back at it compared to what country is now,
Correct.
It's like, shit, man, that's country. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, you can't sit here and tell me God Bless the Broken Road isn't a country song.
I mean, yeah. So it's ever defining. I mean, you can't put one definition on it because as soon as you do, it's going to change.
Yeah.
I feel like as an artist, the one thing you can do is be true to yourself.
Yeah.
And be constant in what you do. And I feel like there's more longevity in that instead of, you see some of these artists out there that try to, I don't know how you say it, but kind of like a blade of grass. They go with whatever the
Right.
Whatever the style is or whatever is popular at the time. I feel like, for me, it's not about doing that. It's about being true to yourself, and it ebb and flows. Sometimes you're here, sometimes you're there, sometimes you're right of it, left of it.
Yeah.
So, I think to me, just being constant and feeding your fans and being yourself and what your fans love about you and doing that. I think that's, for me, that's the key to it.
Yeah. Well, and I think you do a great job of that. Like the authenticity really shines through.
Yeah.
And I feel like that
I think it's always about feeding your fan base. And what did your fan base buy into? A little more country than that. Roll with it.
Yeah.
All over the road. That's what they bought into.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's super important for me to feed those fans because those fans will always be with you.
Yeah, and they've given you everything that you have. And so in a way, the tough part is how do you do that and then also keep up with the times and not, be the guy who was left behind. But I feel like you do such a great job with that is record to record. It's like I think, you, but it's evolved.
Yeah, I think there's
which
a way
is
to
really
do that,
hard
man.
to do. I'll give you a lot of credit for that.
Well, I think it's you just got to find a way to do that and reinvent it every time, and use those things like the 808s and things like that.
Yeah.
And, use those things to your advantage.
Yeah.
And it's just, you gotta figure it
that's
out.
super interesting. You do country music. What is like your Spotify or your iTunes or your Amazon like playlist look like? Are you a guy that like listens to music working out? Are you like an in the car guy? I don't listen to a ton of music.
I don't. I never, and I don't listen to a bunch of playlists. When I'm working out, I don't like music when I'm working out.
Interesting.
It distracts me.
Interesting.
You know what I mean? It's fine with music over, but in my
You're never
ears,
gonna pop in some earbuds.
No. And if I'm doing cardio, usually I'm watching something on Netflix or something.
Really?
Like that. But once in a while I'll listen to some music, but usually it'll be a throwback.
Yeah.
But when I'm in my vehicle, I don't.
You like a podcast, audiobook guy? Any of that?
Man, I'll flip through stations on satellite radio or something, just kind of here and there. Not anything particular.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. I always have to ask. What's interesting to me is you've actually had this like super interesting splash in the EDM world, which I like. I saw this remix of "Are You With Me?"
Yeah.
I was actually in Italy, and I was like in a little coffee shop,
Yeah.
and that song came on. I was like, "Oh, that sounds
Pretty
like
random,
Easton Corbin."
man. Pretty random.
How did that happen?
EDM and Easton Corbin, that doesn't even go in the same
you got
set.
the
That ain't
I'm a
even
little
the
more
same
country
room.
than that guy.
I know.
To
That's
EDM smash.
That's not even supposed to be in the same room, right?
But I'm so glad it is. How did it happen?
I have no clue, honestly, because
Really?
I'm sitting in my house one night, and my steel guitar player calls me. He's like, "Hey, man, I just heard 'Are You With Me?' on the EDM station." I'm like, "What?" And it's like 10 o'clock. I'm like, "Dude, are you drunk or are you high?" Or both.
Right.
He's like, "No, I promise." So sure enough, I went and Googled it, whatever. And this DJ, Lost Frequencies, had taken a sample of it and turned it into this EDM thing. And it was actually really cool.
Yeah,
Very
it's
cool.
awesome, man.
Yeah.
That's wild. I was so curious, like what the story was there, because I'm like, how did this happen?
It was totally random.
Because the original is it's a country song. I mean, through and
Absolutely.
through. And you heard it, it's all sped up. It's got this little drop, like a 4 on the floor, and it's great. Did y'all just do another one too?
We did, yeah. It's called One More Night, and he reached out to the writers of Are You With Me? And he's like, "Hey, man, I would love to do something in that vein, but he's like, but I'll only do it if Easton sings it." I'm like,
that's dope.
"Okay, that's cool. Let's do it."
Say less.
Yeah.
I got this.
And I don't know. It's cool because it kind of exposes who you are and your music to another whole genre or a whole nother audience would never even think about listening to your stuff.
Especially country music as it grows and expands, like EDM remixes or
especially being a country, more traditional country artist, an EDM fan's gonna be like, "Hey, what is that?"
Most of the time, but they're gonna find those songs and be like, "Yo, this guy can sing, and songwriting's good."
That's one of the things that I found was like a lot of people were like, "Oh my God, I had no idea this was a whole song."
Yeah.
So they went, and looked up and found my version
original.
of it.
Yeah. It's a great song.
They liked it. It was really cool.
No, that's really, really cool. I had that song on my Spotify, and I was listening to it on the way here. I was like, it's crazy that you have, obviously,
I actually heard it in the gym. So I heard it the other night in the gym, and I'm like,
I'm sure.
That's me.
Oh shit, that's me. No, it's awesome. As a guy who, like, you probably moved here, social media pretty much doesn't exist, or like MySpace.
Man, it was MySpace. I remember having my music on MySpace, and then
did you put your own music on MySpace?
I did, yeah. And then it was Facebook. I remember in college it was Facebook on campus.
Yeah.
And I didn't live on campus, so a lot of the kids that lived on campus had Facebook because it was kind of just a college by college thing.
Right.
But then MySpace was the big platform, and then it went from MySpace to Facebook. And and so on, as you know.
Right. Well, it's super interesting because obviously you moved here. It probably plays a small, if nothing, role today with something like TikTok or those kind of platforms. Like, does that play a role in your career? Is that something that you game plan when you release music?
Yeah, I haven't really gravitated a whole lot to the TikTok thing. I've got an account, but I'm not really active on it that much. I mean, I do use social media for that stuff, like Instagram, Facebook, all that stuff. But, I don't naturally gravitate towards some of that. I just, there's some people that love that stuff.
Sure.
And for me, it's like, I'd rather be outside doing something.
Well, and it comes back to the authenticity thing, which is like, it's going to feel, forced if it's forced.
Yeah.
So do what you do. And I think, obviously you have a great team and you're not hurting, so everything's rolling fine. But I'm always curious to ask because it's like it's playing such an interesting role in music today. Like I find a lot of the music I listen to, I'm like, this is a random TikTok song, and I'm listening to it. So I had to ask. Now I'm going to ask you. There's 5 people.
Okay.
You're just gonna say like a couple things. First things that come to mind. A couple that you've toured with, and then some other people I've thrown in. Brad Paisley.
Brad Paisley. That was one of my first tours. I did. When the first tour, he called me up and asked me if I wanted to be on the tour, and I did the water stage because it was the H2O tour.
Oh, right. Yeah,
that was the theme of his tour, and they had a water stage out in the parking lot, and I think it was me, Josh Thompson, and Steel Magnolia played that stage, and it would be 3 o'clock in the afternoon it would start.
Yeah, he's playing like arenas or whatever.
Yeah, it would be the amphitheaters, and I remember that well, man, and playing that parking lot, man, it'd be so damn hot. Like, because it's like, right in the middle of the day,
Yeah.
3:30, but it was a really cool experience. And it's so funny when you look back on that stuff and it just makes you feel that much more blessed and fortunate to be here
Yeah.
because you think of the guys that you've came up with playing like the Josh Thompsons, which he's a great writer and a great singer.
Yeah.
And the Steel Magnolias, like their artist career is not,
Right.
they don't have an artist career anymore.
That must feel really cool because you have lasted now for whatever that is, a
Well,
decade.
it's
in a
crazy.
really strong presence in a genre that is hard to stay relevant in.
It is, and it's funny, and I think about back on it. When I first got signed, I had these other acts that were signed along with me that they're not here today. So it just makes you feel that much more blessed and fortunate and lucky to be,
especially
man.
for those people who you're talking about, your fans and the people that you feed.
Absolutely,
but
man.
that you got to take some credit because that means you're feeding them well.
Well,
you're adding enough
we
value
try,
that
man.
they continue to come back.
Well, and that's the thing I noticed at a lot of shows. At the end of the day, some of my audience or some of my fans' favorite songs were never singles.
Yeah,
they're some of the album.
And that's how you know you have real fans.
Yeah,
it's one thing, big old hit radio song.
Absolutely,
makes a lot of sense. But you have somebody come up and be like, "Yo, I love."
Yeah,
whatever.
I want to hear Tulsa, Texas. I want to hear Let Alone You, Dance Real Slow.
And that's the song that brought them to the show.
Exactly.
That's how you know you fed your people.
And that's the thing, when you're making a record, I always feel like, hey, yeah, we got to cut some stuff. It's going to be radio singles, but then you also cut stuff that'll feed those fans.
Yeah, your people.
Those, deep-rooted fans.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's number one. Carrie Underwood.
She's awesome, man. I mean, that was one of the biggest tours, I think, of that year. It was huge, man. The stage, I think it would take them 2 days to set that stage up. It was so big.
Dude,
massive.
I've seen her before at like the Pepsi Center, which is our like arena in Colorado. It is a production.
Oh, it was
girls
huge.
Doing 9 outfit changes and the freaking lights. There was like confetti. It was crazy.
I remember it was me and the Swan brothers out there.
Nice.
And we would go out and during the middle of her show, and we would come up on the elevator, and our toaster.
Yeah.
And I think we sang one part of the tour. It was like mountain music, Alabama song. And then I can't think of the other song that we sang.
Was it Fishing in the Dark?
I don't think so, but that's a good guess. It was something. It might have been that. I don't know.
Something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay.
Something everybody could sing.
Yeah. Well, number 3, what a segue. Swan Brothers. What do you
Swan
got?
Brothers, man, great guys.
Yeah.
Talented guys. I mean, seriously talented guys.
Yeah. Talk about singing.
And, oh yeah. They're great.
Yeah.
And funny as all get out, man. They're a good hang. Trust me.
Here's the perfect time. We're gonna rock into my favorite part of the interview: the questions.
All right. I'm getting nervous.
I mean, hey, here's the deal. These are the weirder, crazier, questions I could come up with. There's no wrong answers.
Well, I am from Florida, and a lot of times we represent on the weird, crazy stuff.
The like, Florida Man headlines kill me. Have you seen those? All right. First question. Here we go. If God could answer one question for you, what would it be?
I don't know if this is good or not, but I would like to know how long am I going to live, maybe?
Interesting. See, I would want to know.
Yeah,
because
and that's where I'm with you a little bit. I'm like, maybe I wouldn't want to know, but one part of me says, yes, I do want to know, but the other part of me is like, I don't know. Like,
yeah.
Or maybe just keep it simple. What are the winning lottery numbers for the mega?
Yeah, that's
whatever.
a good one. That's a good one. Yeah. I'm curious how I'm gonna die, but I don't know if I want to know when I'm gonna die.
It's one of those things. It's like, you don't like, you want to know, but you don't want to know.
Right.
It's kind of scary.
I agree. That's a good one. I like that one. Okay, here's one. What is a daily habit that you're proud of, and what's a daily habit you wish you could change?
Daily habit I'm proud of is I generally go to the gym every day. I kind of keep up with that.
What's give me like an average day in the gym. Are you like a cardio guy? Are you a weights guy? Are you a combo guy?
Man, I kind of do some of it both. Sometimes I go to my trainer and do that, and then sometimes I do it on my own. But I usually end. I lift a lot of weights, and then usually I end with some cardio, stuff like that.
Nice. You look great.
Well,
so there you
thanks,
go.
bud.
There you go. What is
I'm trying.
What is something that has dramatically changed your life in the last 3 months?
Dramatically changed my life in the last 3 months. Oh, wow. I guess COVID.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what I mean? Like as far as touring and how we tour. And
as a touring guy, like what was that feeling getting that phone call like, yo, you're off the road? Like,
man, I tell you, it was kind of gradual because we were fortunate. We were playing shows up to, the bitter end where we couldn't. And so it kind of like, man, it was tough because I'm a guy. I love the road. I love being out there with my fans. I love interacting, and being home that long. No.
Yeah, I'm
No,
such a
no
social
bueno,
guy.
man.
Like it
Well,
killed me, dude.
and I can be both. I don't mind sitting at the house on the weekend and not doing anything, watching TV, just hanging
Right.
out. But generally on the weekend, I hate being in town on the weekend because I'm
Yeah.
so used to being out on the road.
It's
and
your life.
and I get in my routine.
Yeah.
I have a routine out on the road, and it's like that almost every day.
Yep.
And to not be in that routine, man, it drives me crazy.
Yeah, there's like routine in the chaos. Like obviously
Yes.
show days are so crazy, but
Yeah.
you have your thing. You got your
I have
breakfast,
my
your
thing,
workout,
man.
yeah. It's interesting. What are the most what are you the most qualified to give advice about?
Nothing. Nothing. I'm not an expert on anything. I don't know. Most qualified, I guess. I mean, maybe being out on the road. I don't know.
I think that's a great answer.
I don't know. I've been
I
doing
think
it for
there's
a
a
while.
lot of I think you'd be shocked at how many like young artists would kill to grab a coffee with you and just pick your brain
Yeah.
because you've been doing it for a decade or whatever to be like, yo, it's my first tour. How do I find my routine? How do I pick songs? Like I think you're definitely qualified. It sounds cheesy, but like you can give the best advice on how to kind of find the same path that you've done.
Yeah.
'Cause-
Well, it's kind of funny, being an artist. My old producer, Carson Chamberlain, great guy, talented guy. He's one I had all my first hits on. And he always told me before this thing took off, he said, man, I can't tell you what it's like to be an artist because I'm not an artist. He said, you have to talk to another artist, but really the only way you find that out is learning it or living it and learning it. That if somebody's not an artist and hasn't lived that, every day, they can't tell you what it's like.
No.
You have to live it.
It's trial by fire.
It really
Like,
is.
There's so many, and I'm sure you get some of the same DMs. It's like, hey man, would love to pick your brain about this or that.
Well, it's just there's nothing quite like it.
Yeah, you just kind of have to be
And-
like jump in the pool and
there's-
start learning how to swim.
And I get it now. What he was talking about. It's like,
Yeah.
man, because a lot of people, their idea of my job and what I do is so different than what it really is.
So
sometimes,
different. So different. Especially even when you're talking about touring. Like,
Yeah.
I think a lot of people think it's just so, especially at the beginning, so glamorous. People are like, yo,
Oh yeah, man.
the bus
You're
life. You're
partying
like,
all the time.
I'm sleeping in a coffin.
Yeah.
I've sang for an hour and a half, 3 nights in a row. I can't talk. I'm so exhausted. I'm hungover. Like, it's definitely different than what people think.
You gotta find your way to fit in that equation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What is the most important piece of advice you'd give to someone starting out in your line of work? Oh, what a great transition.
I think finding people that you can trust and, finding people that are not just yes guys.
Yeah,
You
the
know what I
people
mean?
on your team, I call it like my wise counsel. Who are
Yeah.
the people who actually give a shit about me and what I'm doing?
It's easy to find people when you're popular
Mm-hmm.
and you're on top.
Yeah.
It's easy. I mean, you're going to have all these people. That's kind of life, though, I guess. In general. But when you're on top and everything's going great, man, you're going to have all these friends.
Mm-hmm.
But then sometimes you gotta find the ones that are your real friends and not just acquaintances.
Yeah.
And that truly care about your well-being.
Yeah, that's a great
know.
answer. I
It's not just an artist, but as a person,
as a human, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I feel like I always heard my parents talking about like you are the 5 people you hang out with.
Yeah.
I was like, I get it. And especially as I get older, I'm like, oh shit,
Really is, man.
your inner circle, the habits that everyone has, the work ethic, like it translates.
It does.
It's a
You
real
got
part
to
of
be
that.
careful who you surround yourself with.
Yeah, that's a
you
great
know?
piece of advice. If you could share a meal with any 3 people, dead or alive, who would they be and why?
Share a meal with dead or alive. 2 of those people would be my grandparents. Just because they were like
Absolutely.
they were like my parents.
Yeah.
I mean, I was that close, and really, they inspired me a lot in my love for country music because they were obviously older.
Right.
My grandpa passed away; he was 92, and my grandma 89, and I spent so much time with them that their influences and their love of country music and what they love that really rubbed off on me.
Mm-hmm.
That had a big influence on me, and so I'd probably have to say them.
It's a great answer.
And man, I don't know. Shoot.
Okay, how about this? Because I've heard you say Merle Haggard, Keith Whitley, George Jones. Those are kind of like your 3.
Those are like my big 3.
Now you got to pick one to go to
Yeah.
dinner with. Doesn't mean like they're the best, but just to sit down with and shoot the
I'd
shit
say
with.
Merle.
Yeah, that's a good answer. Such a wild character,
Oh,
and
yeah.
what a crazy life.
Yeah, I actually got to meet him once.
Did you really?
I did.
Oh,
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Also that one. That's really cool. That's a really good answer. have you ever had an experience that you cannot explain? If so, what was it?
An experience I can't explain. I don't know. Help me out.
Like UFO, alien,
It's hard not
car
to relate
crash.
everything to, it's hard not to relate to something on stage or something like that. I don't
And-
know. Man, that's a tough question. I don't.
You think on that one.
Let
We'll
me
go to a
think on
different
that,
one.
yeah.
Okay. This one's interesting. What do you think your superpower is? The thing that you do better than anyone, or the thing that like got you to where you are? Your superpower.
Man, I think I'm a pretty personable person,
Mm-hmm.
and I can about get along with anybody.
That's a good
If-
superpower.
If I can't get along with you, there's an issue. Because I generally can get along with about anybody.
yeah.
You know,
That's good.
I don't know.
And I'm sure in your line of work, to be able to relate to human beings and to have that authenticity.
Yeah, man, you got to learn to adapt a little bit, you
Yeah.
know, especially in our environment, when
Mhm.
you're around so many people and you come across so many situations, you learn to kind of adapt on the fly a little bit.
Yeah, that's a great superpower.
Yeah.
That's underrated. That's a really good one. If you could add anything into your life right now, what would it be and why?
Add anything into my life.
Could be like
Hmm.
meal prepping. It could be working out. It could, well, you already work out every day. We
Yeah.
know this. Could be some more music. Could be some more travel. Could be some more.
I would say probably if I could add anything to my life, I don't know if this counts, but just getting back to the consistency of where we were before COVID.
Yeah.
It's crazy because I was thinking about it today, and I've thought about it before. I've never taken for granted what I do.
Mhm.
I've always been really thankful for what I do. It's like, nothing wrong with an 8 to 5, but I'm so glad I'm, like Ace
Yeah.
Hardware.
And you love
It's
what
like,
you do. Yeah.
so, Ace Hardware was a great job to hold me over, and nothing wrong with that. But thank God I'm not doing that today. And again, there's nothing wrong with that job. It's awesome, and it paid the bills, and it helped me. But it's like I'm always so thankful to be doing what I'm doing, have this opportunity. But then within that, you never thought something like a total halt of touring would happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then it happens, and you're like, holy shit! Like this could all go away.
Yeah.
And
it did.
And it did.
It did. Yeah.
So it's just.
If you could add anything back, it would just be the normalcy.
The normalcy,
Back to
just
your
getting back to
routine,
like no brainer. Yeah, we're leaving Thursday night.
Yeah.
And, what precautions? Like, there's no precautions. Like,
Yeah.
go have fun.
I cannot wait for the day where we're all just like, oh yeah, remember the thing, COVID, and
Yeah,
it's
and
just,
it's crazy because a lot of people are still pretty scared, which it's a scary thing.
Mhm.
But I like getting out there and I like hugging and handshaking.
I know.
and being with the fans, man.
well, to meet these people who have given you your dream job.
That's why I'm here talking to you today.
Yeah, straight up, man. Like to have that experience, to me, it's the end of the full circle. You write a song, you demo the song, you listen to it in your truck. You're like, okay, what's it gonna be? Then you produce it. You
the
mix it, you
ultimate
master
end
it.
result is
To meet that
you
human.
people love it.
Yeah, and it's
they
a part
accept
of
you
their
and they love
life.
it.
Like the fact that I would go fishing to Clockwork, that is
great,
the full
man.
circle. It's a part of someone's life. Like when I went through a breakup, I thought of that song.
You have a certain song.
That's
yeah.
crazy.
It's so funny, and also I've heard people. It's kind of pet peeve of mine a little bit. I've heard people be like, "Man, thank God now we don't have to do all these annoying meet and greets and all this stuff." And I'm like, "What are you talking about? Annoying meet and greets?
Yeah,
These people are the reason you're here.
100%.
They're the ones that give you this livelihood. It's like there's nothing annoying about that. It's like I want to meet these people. It's like it's like these people are paying to come and shake your hand and tell you how much they love you.
Yeah. Well,
It's
and I
like-
always think of this guy up here. If
so-
you're listening, I'm pointing to Garth Brooks. He's the king. I mean, dude
Absolutely,
would stand
man.
around for 2 or 3 hours, and I think that's what keeps you in the game. Is a real. I think anybody can come in and out, but to stay, especially as long as you have, is to enjoy the meet and greet. Is to enjoy the
Absolutely,
routine
man.
on the road.
I mean, who doesn't want people coming and saying, "Man, I love you. I love your music." It's like that's great.
That's amazing.
It's like I will never complain about that.
Yeah. Well, that's a great attitude.
I might be tired sometimes.
Yeah,
I
of
might
course.
be whatever, but
I don't have a
will
voice. I'm hungover,
but I will never complain about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, no, I love that, man. What is the emotion or feeling that you deal with the worst?
Emotion or feeling that I deal with the
Mm-hmm.
worst. As in, what do you mean?
Like for me, I don't like I don't like to be wrong, especially like in a setting where I could be like embarrassed. So like say we're all talking about something and somebody's like, "Oh no, that was last year." And I'm like, "No, it's 2 years ago." And I get really like, "Trust me." and they Google it and I'm wrong, I'm like, oh, like that shame or like embarrassment I hate. Some people hate feeling angry because they hate the way that like, or they don't deal with it well. So they like would drink or they'll do something weird like
I guess
instead of
sometimes
deal with the emotion.
anxiety sometimes,
Yeah, that's a good
especially being on
answer.
stage sometimes, or if you're traveling. I remember, and lately here, I was like, being on planes sometimes. Just I generally don't get anxious, but just like being in that tight space,
That's a
kind
great
of makes
answer.
you a little
Yeah.
anxious. So, and I hate feeling like
How do you deal with anxiety? Like anxiety arises, is that something that just like you have a plan for that, or is it kind of like get through it when it happens?
take a drink, maybe. No, that ain't. But nah, man, just breathe and like relax. And
Yeah.
to me, it's like, if I'm on stage, it's like, man, these people are here because they love me.
Yeah, yeah.
They're here because they love the music.
Yep.
God's given me this talent, so just use it, man.
Yeah, somebody
know?
told me once they're like, anxiety is your natural way of like your body's way of saying that you're excited and that you want it. And I think that's true. It's like if you weren't anxious and you're like, I'm just gonna crush this, that's probably not good either.
Yeah.
There has to be enough of the like, I'm kind of scared because you want it to go so well.
You want that passion of that first time feel of like
Yeah.
that first time feeling is like, man, I want to crush this thing. I want to I want to do great. It's like I think you should always have that.
Yeah,
when you lose that,
absolutely.
sometimes you might lose the drive a little bit.
It's true.
It's funny that my steel player always said that he's like, man, when I get anxious or I'm afraid I'm gonna screw up a part or something, I just kind of say a little prayer to God and be like, hey, you gave me this talent, just let me use it.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I agree with that. That's awesome. If you could choose to do anything for a day, what would it be? Give me the Easton Corbin, like top to bottom. You got a day off. It's paradise. Where are you? Who are you with? What are you doing?
I'm probably with my buddies riding dirt bikes somewhere.
That's a good answer.
Yeah, I love it, dude. That's so much fun. Or hunting somewhere, but I would say probably dirt bikes because it's so like physical and active, and it's just so much fun, especially on a fall day.
Yeah.
when it's nice and cool out there.
Oh,
and-
yeah.
yeah, dude, it's awesome.
There's something about like motorized vehicles where you're like, I could die right now, so I can't think of anything else. Like I have to think of this path or this
yeah.
rock or whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure. It's
that's
like I'm
awesome.
going down this hill at 40 miles an hour. It's like, do not hit this rock. Then
It's
or
like
you-
it puts you in the zone.
yeah, or you're gonna
You
go
have to be.
tumbling over. True. Yeah.
That sounds fun, man. Okay, this is a good one to end on. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah,
I
man,
love
thank
this,
you,
man.
man.
I appreciate you.
I
And
enjoyed the heck out of
when
it.
I think of like just awesome people in the industry and people who like have done it the right way, I definitely think of you. And
Oh,
so just
thanks,
know that
man.
like you're a great roadmap for up and coming artists and
Oh,
new
thanks.
artists. It's
Appreciate it.
awesome. Okay, last question here. What is your biggest goal in the next 6 months, year, and 5 years?
My biggest goal right now is I'm making a new record.
That's very exciting.
I'm making a new record, and I hope people receive this new record as well as they've received my others. I think long term, it's I want to be selling out arenas.
Yeah,
Shoot for the stars, man.
that's
you know?
amazing.
And just keep feeding those fans and keep making more fans.
Yeah.
But never forget the fans you already have. You know what I mean? You
Yeah.
got to keep feeding those guys too. But I think you just got to be authentic to yourself, and if you're authentic to yourself, I think those fans they get it.
Yeah.
Especially your true fans.
That's amazing. I love that, man. That's
You find what works for you, and what that connection that audience member has with you, and what caused them to buy into who you are. And man,
Yeah.
keep feeding that.
well, that's freaking inspiring.
and I think the thing is you got to figure that out.
Yeah, I think what me and my manager are always talking about is there's a difference of like putting something out and feeding, like entertaining versus feeding. And really, when somebody digests something that they feel like they have sustenance and that they feel like
Well, something that moves the needle.
and it's added value in
because
their
there's certain
life.
songs out there, they're hits, but did they move the needle?
Right.
Not really. And then there's songs that, Clockwork. That's a song. I think it got to 32 maybe, but that's some people's favorite song.
Yeah. It moved the needle and it wasn't a number
It
one.
wasn't necessarily number one.
Yeah.
But it did move the needle because that's some people's favorite song.
Yeah. Well, I'm
know?
so excited to hear the record, and I
Yeah,
just
thank you,
wanted to
man.
say again,
Thank you.
thank you so much for being out here. It's been a pleasure.
Hey, same here, bro.
Guys, thank you so much for watching. That's been another Why Are We Here? Make sure to subscribe, like, tell your friends, tell your enemies, and we'll see you next week.
Why are we here?